Bitcoin didn't become real when it was invented. It became real when someone else received it. January 12th, 2009. A transaction worth absolutely nothing would one day be remembered as one of the most important moments in financial history. 10 Bitcoin, sent from one programmer to another. No one celebrated, no headlines, no investors. Yet that simple transfer proved something extraordinary. For the first time, a decentralized digital currency had successfully moved from one person to another, and the world would never be the same again. History didn't change because of the amount. History changed because the transaction succeeded. January 12th, 2009. Somewhere in the world, two computers were connected through a brand new network. There were no banks, no payment processors, no financial institutions approving the transfer. Just one person sending 10 Bitcoin to another. At the time, those coins had no market price. They couldn't buy a cup of coffee. They couldn't buy a slice of pizza. In fact, outside a small group of cryptography enthusiasts, almost nobody even knew Bitcoin existed. There were no television cameras recording the moment, no headlines announcing a technological breakthrough, no investors rushing to buy. It looked like an ordinary software test. But history would remember it differently, because this was the first successful Bitcoin transaction between two people. It proved something that no white paper could ever prove. Bitcoin wasn't just a theory anymore. It worked. A decentralized digital currency had moved across the internet without asking permission from anyone. Looking back today, that simple transfer wasn't valuable because it contained 10 Bitcoin. It was valuable because it proved an entirely new financial system could actually function. Every payment made on the Bitcoin network today can trace its roots back to this single moment. But before anyone could send Bitcoin, someone had to believe it was worth testing. Ideas change history. Proof changes the world. When Satoshi Nakamoto published the Bitcoin white paper in October 2008, the idea was revolutionary. A digital currency with no central bank, no government, no trusted third party. But on paper, every invention sounds possible. The real challenge is proving that it works. Could strangers transfer digital money across the internet without trusting each other? Could a decentralized network prevent the same coins from being spent twice? Could software replace institutions that had controlled finance for centuries? These weren't philosophical questions. They were engineering problems. For Bitcoin to survive, Satoshi needed more than elegant code. He needed evidence. Evidence that the network could operate exactly as designed. Every new block had to be verified. Every transaction had to be accepted by independent computers. Every rule had to be enforced without a central authority. That is why the first transaction mattered so much. It wasn't about 10 Bitcoin. It was about proving that trust could emerge from mathematics instead of institutions. And for that proof, Satoshi needed someone willing to participate. Fortunately, one programmer was paying close attention. Every revolution needs a first believer. Bitcoin found its first in Hal Finney. Every groundbreaking invention begins with one person willing to take a chance. For Bitcoin, that person was Hal Finney. Long before cryptocurrencies existed, Finney had already earned deep respect in the cryptography community. He believed that privacy wasn't just a technical feature. It was a fundamental human right. When Satoshi released the first version of the Bitcoin software on January 9th, 2009, Hal didn't ignore it. He downloaded it, installed it, and started running the network himself. At that moment, Bitcoin wasn't an investment. It wasn't a business opportunity. There was no exchange, no market price, no headlines, just an experimental piece of software shared between a handful of programmers. Yet Hal immediately recognized something unusual. This wasn't another digital payment system. It was a completely different way of thinking about money. For the first time in history, two strangers could exchange value across the internet without asking permission from anyone. That possibility was worth testing, and Hal Finney became the first person brave enough to test it. A few days later, Satoshi decided to send Hal something, just 10 Bitcoin. That single decision would become history. The first transaction wasn't the beginning of Bitcoin. It was the moment Bitcoin proved it could survive. On January 12, 2009, Satoshi Nakamoto opened his computer. Across the network, Hal Finney's node was already running. The system was ready. There was no audience, no countdown, no celebration. Just two programmers connected by an idea. Satoshi entered a destination, 10 Bitcoin. Then, he pressed send. Within seconds, the Bitcoin network began verifying the transaction. Independent nodes checked every rule. The digital signature was valid. The coins had never been spent before. The block was accepted. And just like that, 10 Bitcoin arrived in Hal Finney's wallet. It wasn't simply the transfer of digital coins. It was the first successful proof that a decentralized monetary system could move value from one person to another without a bank, without a payment company, and without asking anyone for permission. At that moment, Bitcoin crossed an invisible line. It was no longer just software. It had become a working financial network. Every Bitcoin transaction that exists today can trace its history back to this single moment. The transaction worked, but there was still one problem. Bitcoin was still worth absolutely nothing. Price tells you what people believe today. Utility determines what they may believe tomorrow. The first transaction had worked perfectly. The software did exactly what Satoshi had designed it to do. The network verified the transfer. The coins arrived. The blockchain recorded everything permanently. From a technical perspective, Bitcoin was alive. But there was one enormous problem. Nobody knew what a Bitcoin was worth. There were no exchanges, no price charts, no investment funds, no headlines on television. If someone had offered you 10 Bitcoin in early 2009, you probably would have declined. Not because it was expensive, but because it appeared to have no value at all. To the outside world, Bitcoin looked like an experiment created by a small group of programmers. Yet every great technology begins this way. The internet was once dismissed as a curiosity. Email was once considered unnecessary. Even personal computers were viewed as toys by many experts. History has a habit of underestimating revolutionary ideas in their earliest days. Bitcoin was no exception. What almost everyone failed to recognize was that value doesn't begin with a price, it begins with utility. And Bitcoin had just proven it could move value without permission. 1 year later, someone would finally agree to exchange real goods for Bitcoin. The purchase? 2 pizzas. Great revolutions rarely begin with applause. They begin with proof. Looking back today, it's easy to focus on Bitcoin's price, the headlines, the market crashes, the billion-dollar companies, the institutional investors. But none of that existed on January 12, 2009. There were no fortunes, no celebrities, no financial television discussing Bitcoin. Just 2 programmers testing an idea that most people believed would never matter. Yet history rarely announces itself while it's happening. The moments that change the world often appear ordinary at first. The first email, the first website, the first smartphone. and the first Bitcoin transaction. Each began as a small experiment. Each quietly proved that something new was possible. Bitcoin's first transaction wasn't valuable because it transferred 10 coins. It was valuable because it proved that trust could exist without a bank, ownership could exist without paper, and money could move without permission. Every Bitcoin transaction processed today, every wallet created, every business accepting Bitcoin, every country debating digital assets, can trace its story back to one simple transfer between two computers. 10 Bitcoin, one sender, one receiver, one moment. That quietly changed financial history forever. But before Bitcoin became valuable, someone bought 2 pizzas with 10,000 Bitcoin, and that story changed Bitcoin forever. Coming next, Bitcoin. Pizza Day. The most expensive pizza in history.